Eric, my man, how you doing? Great to have you here on this episode of Coby's Brain.
Coby's Brain. It's a dangerous place to be, but I'm happy that I'm wearing purple because I like the color. You thought it was going to be insightful. Never is, never has been. It might be.
Hey, give yourself some credit, Eric. You have some insightful things to say, which is why you're the first guest on this new iteration of the show.
You know, I take credit for nothing, but I'm fortunate and grateful that you chose me out of all your other Jewish friends and your non-Jewish friends. There's nothing wrong with a goy, but I'm a Jewish boy.
Okay, so Eric, it's a real pleasure to have you here on the show. We are always curious to see how the mind of Eric Fishman works. So we are going to discuss, I think we said that you wanted to talk about the Medici family. So
I did, honestly.
So I guess let's get into that.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's a topic we all know everything about. I'm just the little boy that likes kind of blowing the casket off of the most important family that was the catalyst behind the last Renaissance.
So I guess to start, why is that what you wanted to talk about?
Well, because you asked me to quantum mechanically quantify love, which is honestly not that difficult. It's more of just there's a lot of priming that goes into play, so I'd rather get something apolitical like the Medici family and their influence in that time period. Something a lot more casual that won't upset anybody in any culture.
Got it. Okay, Mr. Fishman, tell us about the Medici family. What do we need to know about them?
What do you want to know? Gotcha. No, I do have this little thing written out, though. I wrote it, oh shit, behind the curtain. The Medici family, who is going to be the entity that will put political aspirations aside for the sake of the artist. They were an influential historical family, but not a whole lot of families are really putting their personal preferences and personification of what the people they want to be in or want to be to the side for the betterment of artists in general. Shout out contract laws and taste swizzle.
So, so I guess when we talk about the Medici family, we're talking about these patrons throughout history or during the Renaissance and in Italy who funded a lot of great artists.
At face value, yeah. They did fund a lot of great artists. It wasn't all altruistic. They say true altruism doesn't exist. I think that is interesting, but they also did get a lot out of it.
So why do you think they did it?
Honestly, only a Medici descendant can tell you that. I think they did it because money buys power. Shout out SFB and all the power he bought in the Bahamas. Casual joke. But without getting any of the crypto people mad, I would say they did it because they were exiled and people liked them. Some people didn't like them. So if you give money to the right people and prop up a city like Florence back in the day, if you build some monolithic, magnificent things, people don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Say it brutally.
I don't know off the top of my head because we just kind of decided this was going to be the topic of conversation. What were some significant pieces of art that the Medici family funded?
Oh, I would direct you to a beautiful art history program. Honestly, I have some bias towards the work of the Hudson Valley boys, girls artistry. So Vassar College, shout out the alma mater. I'd ask honestly an art history major, which my little cousin is. Actually, if you want, she goes to school at Occidental. Don't want to dox her, but she's really smart. And I would say that me talking about the art that they commissioned would be honestly just a trip down memory lane for people who literally like that stuff. I'm more of a David Hockney guy myself, more contemporary. But I honestly think the political aspirations or aspirations, like the lack thereof aspirations, is more interesting as a concept.
Let's dive into that. The political, you're saying that they had political reasons for
they had
funding the art.
Yeah.
Tell us, what were those reasons? What are the political aspirations someone might have?
One of them
art that supports a specific idea?
No, I think it's the fact that they were literally exiled from the place they called home and they needed to fund so much art. Not saying that that's coming back to the altruistic point. They didn't do it just because they love art. They literally wouldn't be allowed to stay in their home if that other leader was ousted and then the political shifts kind of swayed them out of favor in Florence because they built a great city. So I would say it's more of why the need to fund artists was done for the, I guess, not self-sufficiency, but using money and then gain political influence from a family that wasn't really from noble blood, so to speak, is more interesting of the sense of, yeah, why did they, I guess, why don't people create art and self-fund their own art?
Because it's expensive to make art, and artists don't always come from means.
I'd love to dive further into that, Coby's brain. Why is it expensive to create art?
Because oftentimes art involves getting other people involved who you have to pay, and because
Interesting.
art takes a lot of time that otherwise would be going towards a job that makes money. So
that's circularly talking about how you need to have money to create art. I would argue that you need just creativity and a pen and paper or just a recorder. Shout out the iPhones we're recording on right now. It's a product plug.
yeah, but the iPhone costs money.
No, it doesn't. Steal it. Like, honestly, you don't. How about shout out all? Like, honestly, I'll show you a singular video of LA circa 2020 when people were literally not paying for shit. Hashtag fucking riots.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing to hashtag, but you know what I'm saying. It's the excuse to not create art because you need other people's validation for it, where it's the idea of it's like you need a job, you need work experience to apply to an internship to get experience. You need people to pay for your art to create more art, when the idea of art is literally self-expression in my mind. So if you literally can't self-express unless there's people paying for you, why did the Medici family need to exist for the Renaissance to happen is the more important question, I would say.
Well, I mean, the
Renaissance
the scale of the pieces of art that happened in the Renaissance, I guess, I don't know, is the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, how's he gonna eat? If he's doing this massive, enormous, large scale thing, or we look at a movie for today, for example, that can't happen without external sources of funding.
Blair Witch Project.
I see what's so okay.
Blumhouse Productions. Literally, if you think you need X
Blumhouse
amount of dollars,
Blumhouse Productions is a company that gives external financing.
It didn't start that way though.
It was just internal projects. So
I
you're
don't know Jason Blum personally. I just know the school he went to. Shout out Vassar.
So the argument you're trying to make here is, if we want to create art, we should be self-sufficient.
No.
What's the argument?
There's no argument. The argument is, why does there have to be an entity to create the infrastructure? I mean, I think there needs to be someone to create the infrastructure, an architect of sorts, but what's the point of people, if people are waiting around for someone to do something for them, why do anything at all?
Well, maybe because people want to make cool shit.
I agree. But why do you need X amount of dollars funded externally to create before you can start creating that cool shit? I'm not saying you can't do it yourself. I'm just saying why, I agree what you said, by the way, about the whole scale thing. The Renaissance as a historical timepiece or time period would not have existed without the funds of the Medici family. But why, it's not like this money doesn't exist. I mean, I don't want to get this politically aggressive, but a lot of people have been canceled in recent times because of their just outspoken grandeur grandeur-ic thought, if that's a word, around their idealism, and they've been subsequently dropped. But
can you give me an example of that?
Nope.
You're saying people have been canceled for their idealism.
Yeah. Or they're I guess it's not their idealism, it's what do they say it? How do they say it in French? I know they say it in Spanish. It's not huevos rancheros. It is plato o plumo de cajones. It's literally, if you have steel nuts and you get canceled for it, that doesn't mean you never had steel nuts. It means that you hit them in pants.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
So you're saying it's just the contents of what people saying being not agreed upon. I'm just looking for. I feel like people get canceled for saying something offensive. Idealism wouldn't be the.
No, it's idealism. Yeah. It's the idealism of individuality. If you literally get canceled by major corporations who are literally fiduciarily obligated to create money and wealth through the stock market, for their shareholders, like the entire concept of the stock market is built on that fabric of principle. And so if it's honestly, they are in their individual right as a limited liability corporation or whatever the thing they're licensed under to drop people that are going to be counterproductive for the bottom line. But that doesn't mean that the person that they were contracting, it's all a contract. And this actually brings me back to the original point, which I'll get to in a minute. But
yeah, bring us back here.
Yeah. Oh, no, the whole thing of the sake of the artist. Yeah. Oh, no, it's all contracts. Literally, shout out Solidarity and the people doing smart contracts. It's not that the old contracts were inherently dumb. It's that people don't like to read. And if you don't know what's in your contract and it's an inherently flawed contract, shout out again, T-Swizzle and Taylor Gang. Not the Taylor Gang you're thinking of. I'm talking that Wiz Khalifa pack. But no, if you do not own the royalties to your stuff, what's the point? Honestly,
is that what this was about? That's why you don't want someone like the Medici family funding your work, because then you don't get royalties?
Oh, not at all. No, they were awesome. Oh no, it wasn't. This was an appreciation. I don't know them at all. Literally, I think they're a corporation. Literally, I don't know any descendants in the Medici family. I was saying more of the sake of there had to be somebody to create or be the capital catalyst for some of these things to get the scale to a critical mass of sorts. Just throwing buzzwords in for the SEO friends. Shout out Yugal. Actually, I watched, what was that movie? I watched Hot Tub Time Machine. Lugal is such a funny concept. But I digress.
Well, yeah, bring us back here.
The whole thing is that the whole Taylor Swift thing is that girl literally, or that woman literally got an advance on money because she was a young girl who literally just sang country music. And then they gave her a contract where she got some money up front, didn't have access to the royalties because by nature of a contract, they own her music in perpetuity for some reason. And that's the concept I'm trying to get at, is that the Medici family doesn't own any of that artwork. They were the capital catalyst of that Renaissance period. And currently, we're in a different power dynamic where I don't think anybody in the Medici family, as a joke, is going to be the next pope. But why does there have to be a family that has aspirations of the ego versus literally giving smart contracts where it's very clear what the power dynamics are? So young girls like the next Taylor Swift don't literally see a singular dollar figure and be like, oh, dope, I need that. Because you need money to survive. I think the target number is like 70,000 or something like that, where it's like everything above there is not gluttonous. It's more of just, you don't need more than that to survive. And if someone says, oh, I need $500,000 for this contract, I'll say, dope. I hope you enjoy that $500,000. But it's an arbitrary number. As in, you're literally giving someone an upfront amount of sum, and they're signing over their own individualistic, creative capital of sorts for the sake of some upfront money because they are just less educated in contract theory.
And in reality, they should be striving to own. They shouldn't be like.
That would be honestly. I mean, I'm just saying, picking apart the language because it's funny too. But they shouldn't strive to do anything. They should strive to continue to create individually. I think it's the people not the people, because it makes it sound like I'm attacking people. I'm just saying the concept of contract theory has been fundamentally disrupted by the idea of a smart contract. That's not like a algorithmic stable coin where it can run amok and become sentient and take over the world. It's more of clear, transparent outlining of what you get when you sign a piece of paper or you digitally sign something, which is the sake I was trying to get at with the Medici family, is that they didn't say, oh shit, we own the Sistine Chapel. They didn't own any of it, at least in my mind. They just contracted it, and then all of the artists around them just started doing stuff, and then now we read it about in the history books.
And they did it for political reasons.
Yeah, but then now, I mean, you can argue, I don't know I honestly can't put words in the mouth of the Medici family. I'll let their descendants talk for themselves kind of vibe, but I guess it's more of the sake of they were literally, because of their individualistic ideas, they were ousted from their region, and when they came back, they started the Renaissance. So it's literally, it's the whole thing with that whole altruistic argument, where if no true altruism exists, I think you should look up a video of a mama bear. Because it's not altruism, but she'll fuck your day up if you fuck with her cubs. Actually, just watch The Revenant. I'm not saying it's a true story. I think it is. But it's just the fact of altruism doesn't exist in theory, but there's a lot of bad political ideology that's beautiful on paper, but in practice you get some ego in there, you get some honestly capitalistic idealism in there, and just the quest for power and money and all that fun stuff, and it gets corrupted in a sense. I'm saying more of the sake of, I mean, that's what I said. Not who will be the entity, but what's the...
It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so why is there aspirations that have to be involved in the arts outside of the form of individualistic expression? If that makes sense.
So your point is, okay. So to wrap, we have like literally no time. So to wrap this up, Eric, you're trying to argue that there should not be any aspirations for art outside of self-expression.
No. I'm just posing questions. As in, why does there need to be aspirations involved in the arts? AKA, why do inherently flawed contracts start the creative process when Taylor Swift was creating music long before she signed any contracts? Like, why is that the stepping stone to gaining national notoriety and scale? That's the question.
All right.
So I'm a question guy.
Eric's posing some interesting questions, interesting things to think about: patronage, smart contracts, and the arts. Eric, thanks so much for coming on the show. We will talk to you.
My bad. Mi scusi. See, a little Italian for the fans nowhere. Because I got no fans. I just have boys. And that's one of them. Woo. What's up, my guy? Yeah, thanks for tuning into Coby's Brain. I just took over the outro because I'm that kind of dick.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.